We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Hello and welcome to MichelleMotivateMe.com. Do you sometimes feel like you can't get through to people? You're communicating, but there's a busy signal, there's a disconnect, it's just not happening? It may be because you are communicating with a personality type that is very, very challenging for your personality type. This video is going to deal with that issue. The 4 strategies on communicating with the personality types. And if you'll notice on the screen, the analytical, the amiable, they both came on the screen very slowly, and that's because their personality types are methodical and they think things through. Now the driver and the expressive whip in and whip out of the video, and in the same way, the personality types are just like that. Okay. Before we get into the communication, I want you to think about some very famous drivers over the history. And who are they? Harry Truman, Queen Elizabeth II, Jimmy Stewart, Mother Teresa, Colin Powell, Queen Elizabeth I, and George Washington. And we want to also look at some famous expressives. What about Johnny Carson, Barbra Streisand, Elvis Presley, Elizabeth Taylor, Clint Eastwood, Amelia Earhart, and Franklin Roosevelt? And let's not leave out Madonna. What about the famous amiables? Let's look at some of those. Albert Schweitzer, Anne Lindbergh, Carl Rogers, Molly Brown, Mahatma Gandhi, Eleanor Roosevelt, Mikhail Gorbachev, and Margaret Mead. Okay, now if you think about these people and what they've meant to us, they are focused on peace, teamwork, all for one, one for all. What about the analyticals? How about Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, Walt Disney, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Ayn Rand, Bill Gates, and Margaret Thatcher? Facts, figures, statistics, graphs, charts, anything that can be quantified. They live for these kinds of things, and we need the analyticals in the world. Believe me, they keep us on our toes and make sure that we've gotten things accurate, that things are done accurately. Okay, and as we mention in all the videos, you want to write this information down. It's the best way to transfer the information from short-term memory into long-term memory. One of the things that we're going to be discussing is identifying those personality types. So how can you, in your day-to-day life, identify a driver? Well, there are verbal, vocal, and visual cues for every personality type, but with the driver in particular, you'll hear him or her say things like, I want results. They'll say things like, right now. The tone of voice is strong and intense. They're quick-paced and loud. Now, it's a little deceiving because the expressives can also be outgoing and fast-paced and talk a lot and be energetic, but it's different. The visual language of the driver is to be really strong and bold in the movements. Now, the expressive is different in the body language because it looks more entertaining and interesting and fun. They might say things like, I have an idea, I have an impression, and they're loud and excited. You can identify an amiable because they'll say things like, well, what would be best for everyone? How should we move forward so that everybody can be happy? They're soft-spoken, they're slower paced, and again, it's a little deceiving because the analytical is also soft-spoken and slower paced in their speaking, but the body language for the amiable is very open, whereas with the analytical, the body language is more closed. And I mean that in the most direct way. Maybe their arms are crossed for the analytical, but the amiable might have open arms. Okay. One of the things that we want to look at is a communication style. So how do you want to communicate with a driver? Well, if you want to be successful, the best way to communicate with that driver is to talk about results. Now, is this true or false? Do they like challenges? Are they fast in their communication? Yes or no? True or false? And if you've been paying attention, you know it's true. That is a driver for you. We are going to do some other true and false with the other personality types. So let's look at the expressive. True or false? Is the expressive structured? Does the expressive want facts, figures, statistics, charts? Will they ask you to cite your source? And will they look up the information? Are they precise and by the book? And if you've been paying attention, you know that is false. That is not the personality type. There is one personality type that fits that description, and I'll give you a hint. It begins with an A, and it's not amiable. Amiable, true or false, the best way to communicate with an amiable is to be a little bit slower in your speaking. Talk about tried and true methods. Don't try to make them make a decision very quickly. They like to take their time, and they're safe about their methods and their approach in doing things. And that is true. All those things that we just mentioned. Now, the best communication style for the analytical, is this true or false? And look at the woman on the screen. Look at that body language. You know, you want to think about, is that your typical analytical? Do they like variety? Are they chatty and social with others and very expressive in their body language? And I gave you a hint right there using the word expressive. Absolutely not. Those are your influencers, your socializers. Okay, so that is false. And one thing is true is that I do read each and every success story that gets sent to me. Please do it and send it to me to Michelle at MichelleMotivateMe.com.